Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
All right, ready to dive deep into one of humanity's biggest questions. Where do we come from?
Ooh, getting philosophical, are we?
You know it, you're probably familiar with the whole evolution thing, but today we're going to contrast that with something completely different. The perspective laid out in Helena Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine, specifically Volume 2 on Anthropogenesis.
So we're talking about dueling origin stories, two very different ways of looking at how humanity came to be.
Exactly, it's like comparing apples and, I don't know, spaceships. To kick things off, let's do a super quick recap of the scientific view of human origins. You know, the one we all probably learned in school, humans evolving gradually over millions of years through natural selection, sharing a common ancestor with primates.
Science really emphasizes that material linear progression, that slow climb up the evolutionary ladder.
Right, like a straight line from point A to point B. But the secret doctrine, it throws that whole ladder out the window and introduces something called root races.
Yeah, forget the ladder. Think more like a spiral staircase, or maybe even a cosmic dance.
Root races. Okay, I'm intrigued. What are those all about?
Picture this, a series of distinct human civilizations, each with its own unique characteristics and abilities. And they predate our current era by a long shot.
So we're talking like Atlantis and Lemuria, right?
Think bigger, way bigger. Those are just a taste. These root races, according to Blavatsky, didn't just evolve physically, they were also guided by divine instructors.
Divine instructors. Okay, now we're going down the rabbit hole. So are we talking like teachers from another planet? Or another dimension, maybe?
You could put it that way. The Secret Doctrine describes them as highly evolved beings who were really involved in shaping humanity's spiritual development. A far cry from the purely material focus of science, right?
Yeah, definitely a different take. So where does Blavatsky even get this information? I mean, is she just making all of this up?
Blavatsky claimed her source was ancient verses called stanzas. She described them as this hidden wisdom passed down through ages. And they're not your typical history books, let me tell you.
So, like secret knowledge revealed, this is getting more and more intriguing.
For example, one stanza describes a race called the Sweatborn and talks about civilizations from the fourth and fifth root races that met their end.
Whoa, sweat-born race. So are we talking about people who just like magically appeared from sweat? That sounds a little, I don't know, strange.
Well, the details are up for interpretation, but it paints a pretty different picture of human origins, that's for sure. It pushes us to think about a timeline that goes way further back than we can even imagine, and includes civilizations that were both advanced and ultimately vanished.
Okay, so on one hand, we have science with its slow and steady evolution, and then we have the secret doctrine with these root races and divine instructors. It's almost like two completely separate stories about where we come from and who we are.
And that difference in perspective really shapes how we see humanity's place in the universe. Are we striving for something better in the future, or are we trying to reconnect with something we lost?
Big questions for sure. Now, another key difference between science and the secret doctrine is this whole concept of the fall.
Ah, yes, the fall, like we messed up somehow along the way.
Yeah, like we took a wrong turn somewhere in our evolution.
Science generally sees evolution as progress, moving ever upward. But the secret doctrine suggests that humanity took a bit of a tumble from a more spiritual state.
So we're not as evolved as we think we are. That's a humbling thought.
Blavatsky describes it as a descent from a higher level of consciousness. And get this, there's a stanza that specifically mentions the evolution of the animal mammals, the first fall.
So even the development of mammals is seen as a step down in this view. Wow, that's a really different way of looking at things.
It is. It suggests that maybe our current state isn't the peak of evolution, like we might have lost something precious along the way.
It's like that saying, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Maybe evolution isn't always a straight line towards progress.
Maybe it's more like a cosmic dance with twists and turns and unexpected detours.
So we have these two completely different origin stories, slow and steady evolution versus cycles of advanced civilizations rising and falling. It's a lot to wrap our heads around. I have to ask, which idea are you more drawn to?
Yeah, which one sparks your curiosity? Which one makes you question everything you thought you knew about human origins? It's a question worth pondering. Makes you wonder about the whole idea of progress, doesn't it? If civilizations have risen and fallen before, where does that leave us?
Right. Are we on some grand path to achievement? Or are we just repeating the same cosmic cycle over and over? But okay, before we go full existential crisis, what about evidence? Science has fossils and DNA. What does the secret doctrine have?
Well, that's where things get a bit tricky. The secret doctrine isn't working with the kind of physical proof we're used to. Blavatsky pulls from ancient myths, religious texts, philosophies from around the world.
So she's not digging up bones and analyzing DNA.
Nope, she's more about piecing together a puzzle using ancient clues and symbols.
So it's like a giant cosmic code she's trying to crack.
Exactly. She was all about the esoteric tradition uncovering knowledge hidden from most people. A whole different way of knowing.
Okay, so science has microscopes and labs, and the secret doctrine has ancient texts and symbols. How do we even compare these two approaches?
They're playing by different rules, right? Science is amazing at exploring the physical world. The stuff we can measure, the secret doctrine moves into consciousness, spirituality, and things science might not even acknowledge.
So it's not about saying one is right and the other wrong.
Not at all. They might both have truth, just in different ways.
I like that. So both views can be correct, even if they seem contradictory.
Think of it like this. You're looking at a mountain. From one side, it's rugged and scary. From the other side, it's gentle and inviting. Both are true.
Right, it's all about perspective, and maybe when we're talking about something as big as human origins, there are multiple ways to understand the truth.
Absolutely. And don't forget, both science and esoteric traditions are always evolving. What scientific fact today might change tomorrow.
And interpretations of ancient texts can change too, right? So maybe the real key is to stay open-minded.
Definitely. Consider different perspectives. Don't dismiss anything outright.
Okay, so we've talked about root races, divine instructors, the fall, and how science and the secret doctrine use different kinds of evidence. But there's another thing that keeps popping up in the secret doctrine that I find really fascinating.
The cyclical nature of time and civilizations.
You read my mind. This idea that humanity goes through these huge cycles of development and decline, kind of like the yugas in Hinduism.
Yeah, the secret doctrine suggests that our current era, with all its focus on tech and material stuff, is just one phase in a much larger cycle. We're part of this grand pattern of rise and fall.
So it's not a straight line to progress, more like a cosmic dance with ups and downs?
Exactly. And the secret doctrine doesn't shy away from destruction either. It sees it as a necessary part of the cycle, like clearing out the old to make way for the new.
Wow, okay, so even in chaos and upheaval, there's a hidden order at work. Some cosmic intelligence guiding everything.
That's the idea. And that's where those divine instructors come back in. They're not just watching the cycle play out. They're actively involved in guiding humanity's spiritual evolution.
So even though civilization might crumble, the bigger picture of spiritual progress keeps going.
That's what the secret doctrine suggests. It's a view of evolution that includes both the physical and the spiritual. A much bigger picture than we usually consider.
Okay, so if we're just one part of this massive cycle, where are we headed? What does the secret doctrine say about our future?
That's a question it doesn't answer directly. It gives clues and hints, but ultimately leaves it up to us to interpret the signs of the times.
So we're not just along for the ride. We actually have a say in what happens next.
Absolutely. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway here. Even if we don't completely buy into the esoteric perspective, the secret doctrine makes us think outside the box.
It's like a giant what-if question hanging over humanity. Like, what if there's a much bigger, more mysterious design than we can even grasp?
Exactly. And that question, that sense of wonder, is what makes this deep dive so interesting.
I couldn't agree more. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's one final piece I want to explore.
Oh, what's that?
Well, the secret doctrine talks about these lost civilizations, these root races with incredible knowledge and abilities. What if some of those powers, weren't completely lost? What if there are still traces of them hidden in the world today?
Now that's a thought-provoking question. Let's explore that in our final segment.
Okay, so we've been talking about these lost civilizations, these root races with their amazing knowledge and abilities. But what kind of evidence do we have that these civilizations actually existed? I mean,
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
right. Science relies on tangible proof, like fossils, artifacts, that kind of thing.
Well, the secret doctrine takes a different approach. It draws on ancient myths, unusual archaeological finds, even unexplained phenomena that science struggles to explain.
So like stories of giants or those underwater cities, we often dismiss those as just myths and legends, right?
Exactly. But Blavatsky argues that those stories might actually hold a fragment of truth, distorted memories of real events, echoes of those lost civilizations. And she devotes a whole section of the secret doctrine to this very topic: giants, civilizations, and submerged continents traced in history.
Wait, there's a whole section on giants. Okay, now this is getting really interesting.
Yeah, she doesn't go into a ton of detail on giants specifically, but she links their existence to those earlier root races. And she points to all these references in ancient literature and mythology, suggesting that giants weren't just mythical creatures.
So she's saying these stories might be based on actual events.
From a time so far back that it's hard for us to even comprehend.
It's like our current understanding of history is just a tiny sliver of the whole picture.
Right. What if there were civilizations that came before the ones we know about? Civilizations with knowledge and technology that we can't even imagine.
Whoa, that's a mind-blowing thought. So where do we go from here? We've got science with its focus on gradual evolution. And then we have the secret doctrine with its root races, divine instructors, and lost civilizations. How do we even begin to reconcile these two perspectives?
That's the challenge, isn't it? It's about expanding our thinking, being open to new possibilities, recognizing that there might be multiple layers of truth.
So maybe it's not about choosing one side or the other.
Maybe it's about embracing both the scientific and the esoteric, recognizing that each offers a valuable piece of the puzzle.
Right. Maybe together they paint a more complete picture of who we are and where we come from.
Exactly, and that's what makes this deep dive into the secret doctrine so fascinating. It challenges us to question everything we thought we knew about our origins.
And it leaves us with this lingering sense of wonder. What if there's so much more to discover? What if we're just scratching the surface of human potential?
That's a question worth pondering, and it's something we can all keep in mind as we continue our own explorations.
Absolutely. Well, this deep dive into the secret doctrine has certainly been a wild ride. We've explored some really big ideas and challenged a lot of conventional thinking.
And hopefully it sparked some curiosity in you, our listeners.
Yeah, we encourage you to keep asking questions, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep an open mind. As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought. If even a small part of what Blavatsky describes is true, think about the possibilities.
What if those lost civilizations really did exist? And what if they possessed knowledge and abilities that we're only beginning to rediscover?
It's a humbling thought, but it's also incredibly exciting because it means that there's still so much out there to learn and explore.
And that our journey of discovery is far from over.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.